Hey guys, it's Sarah at carnivore.yogi on Instagram. Thank you so much for coming on to my YouTube channel. Please hit subscribe while you're here. So today I'm going to talk about why I failed at the keto diet. Actually, really just my 4 really big issues that I personally had with the keto diet. And I know some of you guys are going to say, well, you're doing carnivore now, so isn't that the same thing as keto? Well, yes and no. I will explain all of that at the end of the video after I finish talking about the 4 problems I have with keto. So before I jump into that, just a little bit of house cleaning. I have a lot of new subscribers, so thank you guys so much for coming on and supporting. I try my best to look at the comments. I don't really read all of them, so if you really want to interact with me, Instagram is going to be a better place. That's kind of where I hang out a little bit more. And my heart is trying to deal with all the comments. I'm new to this. So another little disclaimer, I am just sitting in my basement on my iPhone recording a video. And I'm really just doing this to tell you guys my experience. All these videos are just my experience. I'm not a doctor, any of that stuff. I am just literally telling you what I've done. I don't know if this way of eating is for you. I don't know if it's going to be the best thing for you. I encourage everyone to work with a doctor, as I have done. I've had a functional medicine doctor that I've worked with and followed my blood work the whole time. So I'm going to encourage everyone to do that. So that's my little bit of housekeeping. Now I'm going to jump into the main topic. So my main problems with keto. So the first problem that I had with the keto diet was the sweeteners. So if you've watched any of my other videos, I am a food addict, just an addictive person. And having those sweeteners, there's tons of keto recipes, which are great. And I think that they can serve as a bridge for people who are coming off of sugar, who are highly, highly addicted to sugar. I think sometimes that can be helpful. But for me, until I got all the sweeteners out of my diet completely, I was still walking around craving sugar, thinking about sugar all of the time. And I think that it doesn't really matter what way you eat. You could eat, vegetarian, vegan, you could eat paleo. I think most people that are health conscious can agree that sugar is the enemy, right? Sugar is what causes addiction, and processed sugars cause problems for people, weight gain, insulin resistance, which I had some before I started eating carnivore. So just adding sweeteners into my diet on a regular basis just continued to foster cravings, and it continued to trigger me so that I would end up overeating or go, kind of like off the rails, as people say. The second problem that I had with keto was the nuts. Now, until I went carnivore on a full elimination diet, I didn't really know that nuts were, well, I wasn't 100% sure. I kind of was like 99% sure, but I wasn't 100% sure that nuts were a major problem for me. When I tried to do keto and when I tried to even do paleo and have nuts in my diet, they would cause me to overeat. It was really, really difficult for me to just have like one serving of nuts, one little palm-sized handful of nuts, as they say on, paleo or keto, measure it out. I would always go overboard, and I would find that nuts would make me crave more other foods. Like I would start with a little bit of nuts, and then I'd end up kind of going overboard, going into like a binge before I knew it. And after going on carnivore, which is basically a major elimination diet, the times that I did have some nuts, I got immediate swelling in my joints. I got knee pain, which is another reason why I started carnivore. I haven't talked about it as much on my other videos, but I was having joint pain. I was trying to practice Ashtanga yoga at 5 a.m. every day, which I think everyone should get their sleep now that I've been away from it for a little bit. But I was doing this yoga and it was absolutely killing my joints. It hurt my joints. And I'm going to talk a little bit more when I get into vegetables, which is number 4, about oxalates, but nuts, especially almonds and cashews, which are the ones that I loved, those are very, very high in oxalates. And if you don't know what oxalates are, I'm going to urge you to search and watch the work of Sally K. Norton. She's probably the world's expert on oxalates, and they can cause kidney stones. That is what causes kidney stones for a lot of people. So I think some people can blame kidney issues on keto. It could be because there are a lot of oxalates in the keto diet. You know, you're using almond flour, almond butter, almond milk, all these things as substitution because it's lower carb, and it's not really, in my opinion, an optimal health food. And also it's very, very bad for the environment. If we want to talk about environmental damage, I could go off on a completely other tangent, but you can do your own research. Look at how many bees die because of the almond farming in California and how much water is used. I just read a statistic that to produce one almond takes 1 gallon of water. So I don't know how good that is for our environment, if that is something that is a concern to you. My third issue with keto diet is the amount of dairy that a lot of people use. So on keto, what you are asked to do is have 80% of your diet be fat and 20% of your diet be protein. And that is, you know, not exactly the easiest thing in the world to do if you're not using dairy. So lots of cheese. I think butter is a little bit more okay for a lot of people, but the cheese is a big problem for many, many people. And I'm not talking about raw dairy. I think that there are benefits to raw dairy, something I may experiment with down the road, but I'm not trying to gain weight right now. And another thing with dairy is it is very, very easy to overeat. I find when I have tried dairy in my carnivore diet, not only have I had issues with bloating, I did a whole video about dairy, but not only have I had issues with bloating and constipation and skin issues, but it just makes me feel horrible. It brings in that depression feeling. The other reasons I have done carnivore is that it really helps me with my mental health. It makes me very calm and very clear, and dairy kind of screws that up. So even for me following a carnivore diet, adding cheese, adding dairy in, it doesn't work. And in a lot of keto diets, to get that 80-20 ratio, dairy is highly, highly used and preferred. And I do see a lot of people overeating dairy because it does mess with your satiety mechanism. It can release chemicals in your brain that cause you to overeat it. So I think that dairy for a lot of people is not ideal, especially if you're looking to heal some kind of an autoimmune issue that you have going on. The fourth issue I have with the keto diet is the high oxalate vegetables. Now, I already did speak about oxalates just a bit ago, but a lot of these low carb vegetables like spinach and kale are extremely high in oxalates. And, for me, and I think that it's like 30% of the population has a very difficult time. You may have the MTHFR mutation. I have one copy of that. You may have a difficult time methylating just in general, so detoxing. So oxalates, lectins, all of these anti-nutrients are probably going to be an issue for, like 30% of the population. It might be more than that. And if there are other studies showing it's more than that. So, when I went carnivore, I had some major oxalate dumping. I did have to use a binder, and I, again, was working with a functional medicine doctor, so she was able to kind of help me, coach me through this. So that is something to take into consideration when you're eating these vegetables. You want to, again, research Sally K. Norton, look at the oxalate content in these vegetables. I do just want to add a caveat at the end of my 4 issues. Can you do keto diet and avoid these 4 things? Absolutely. I think that there's plenty of foods that you can eat that are not high oxalate. You can avoid almonds and, nuts. You can avoid dairy. You can avoid sweeteners and do keto. Absolutely. I have just chosen to do carnivore because I had a lot of autoimmune issues and I had other health issues that I really wanted to get to the bottom of, and I really wanted to experience a deeper level of healing. So that is why I chose to eat carnivore. Now, in the future, I'm open to adding in and trying some different foods that are whole. I will try something that is low oxalate, that I know doesn't have a bunch of anti-nutrients in it. I'm open to it. So I'm not, the carnivore police and saying never eat this food and, this is the only way you should eat and giving you guys that kind of a advice. Absolutely not. Again, I'm just sharing my experience here. So is the carnivore diet keto? Well, yes and no. So there are some people doing the PKD, Paleolithic Ketogenic Diet, which that is a whole entire protocol They ask you to eat organ meats, which I do think can be very helpful. I feel better adding a few organ meats into my diet. They ask you to eat animal fats like suet or just the fat that comes on the meat, and you stay at an 80-20 ratio. So you will be in a state of ketosis if your diet is 80% fat and 20% protein. But what I see, a lot of people who are doing the carnivore diet are not sticking to those ratios very strictly, including myself. And I wore a continuous glucose monitor. I did a whole video about it. I'm gonna wear one again because I am thinking of doing some more experimenting. I've got some ideas. But when I wore that CGM, my blood sugars fasting were basically like a, quote unquote normal person, someone who was probably eating carbohydrate, because my body has over the last year adapted to this way of eating. And if you eat 100 grams of protein, most people are going to go through gluconeogenesis, and your body is going to act like it's about 60 grams of carbs. So you can go and research this on your own a little bit more, but if you're eating a higher level of protein, your body does go through that adaptation to kind of process the protein. What your body does is kind of turn it into not strict and pure, but carbohydrate. The other side of that is, though, that my blood sugar, and you can watch my CGM video, stayed very, very even. I never really had spikes, over like 20, 30 points, even when I was really stressed out. So, that has benefits as well, to have a very level blood sugar. I think that there's a lot of research coming out talking about insulin and type 3 diabetes, which is Alzheimer's. So there's a lot of research coming out that, supports that your blood sugar being stable is a really, really good thing. People can argue about it. That's fine. Again, I'm just sharing my experience here. So, to wrap all of this up, I think people can do keto, and I think people can be successful. And I know a lot of people who have been successful on the keto diet, but this is just my experience with it. Those 4 things were major problems for me. And when I eliminated them, I felt a lot better. Mentally, I was a lot clearer, a lot more focused, slept better, digestive system worked a million times better. And anytime that I have messed up on carnivore, which I have, September was the last time that I decided to experiment a little bit and try some keto foods. It was not good. It was not a good experiment. My depression is the first thing that came back right away. I had cravings, and, I'm open again to experiment down the road, but that experimenting that I did back in September overall was not a good thing for me. So that's what I have today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to share this video with anyone you feel would be helped by it, and have a really awesome day.